Merry Meet, Annie here. This video is in response to this week's subject on Pagan Perspective, which is a subject that has a few subjects in it. The first subject is candle magic. We all develop as we walk the path the things that express our personal magics the best. And we all discover 4 or 5 things that are the things that resonate the best for us and the things through which we create the most powerfully. And candle magic is one of those things to me. All the many different ways in which you can do candle magic. So it's a very important part of how I pray and how I meditate, how I affect change, how I find my deepest center. Candle magic is a lot of everything to me. So here's my cheat sheet list. So I'm going to rattle off real fast the ways in which I would do, the ways in which I would use, let's say, candle magic. Centering, grounding, meditation, divination, scrying, spell work in the sense of offering up and also bringing towards, and invocation. And all kinds of shades of things within all of those things that would be how I would use candle magic. Techniques I would use, and again I'm using my cheat sheet so I can rattle these off quickly. Anointing, and that would be using oil. It could be using water. It could be using incense, in a sense of an incense bathe, and it is the use of the bodily fluids, the sacred fluids of our body. Scribing on them, and that would be runes, markings, sometimes actually words written in good old-fashioned English, and spiraling. I love to inscribe spirals up or down a candle. And color work, of course, combined with candles. And candle magic to me also is the power of will. In my spirituality, it is aligned with the power of the blade, of the athame, and the deep spiritual center, the passion of spirituality within us, the very core of us, the deepest power from our solar plexus. So it is where that energy comes from and what it feels aligned to that is part of candle magic. Okay, the next subject was centering. How do we center? For me personally, when I'm getting ready to relax, to meditate, or indeed if the centering itself is the only meditation, which is very common for me, I have many techniques that I like to use. I just kind of quiet down and decide what I feel like doing. Breathing is the most common one for me. Deep breathing in and out. And also the breathing of the 4 elemental breaths, where each breath is a combination of breathing in or out through nose or in or out through mouth, and how you draw from the solar plexus. The breaths of the elements as a centering. Using the silent hand signals to call the elements around me and feel them settle around me. I do that every morning almost as a dance or almost a mudra of the body, a Tai Chi, which is also a centering thing for me. Toning is a very important centering exercise for me, where you select the sounds of the vowels in your name and you tone them. I tone using my craft name, and it comes out sounding like this. Drumming is very important to me, and I'm very careful. Drumming for centering, and if I'm moving about, it's because I'm picking up Ome, who is my drum, and someday I'll do a little bit on the side of what drumming is to me. I do drum up the elements, I drum for meditation, but for centering, I drum the heartbeat. I can go on forever with just that, but I do change after the drumming of the heartbeat to what drum feels right for me, what rhythm feels right for me. Our bodies aren't the same every time we try and center, and so we can find different things that fit us each time. I also use my bell. Now my bell is not a bell with a clapper. It has a wooden hand clapper. I don't center using the sound you would use, say, to invoke or begin a ritual, which is a very bell-like sound, which I just smothered. Excuse me, bell. I center using my bell as a singing bowl. That's just a touching on all the things I've tried over the years to center. It's just it will be sometimes my prayer for the morning or my prayer for the afternoon or evening, that to sit quietly and find my personal core and find the place where I feel like whatever the vibration of the universe is, that I'm in tune with it at that place. That's what centering's like for me. Now centering, when it comes to ritual, for my own self, any of the techniques I just mentioned will get me to a place of being centered. And then I begin, when I enter my ritual space, as I'm about to begin, doing honoring of the altar, which is nothing more than sitting quietly in front of the altar and laying hands on it and letting it pull you down into a place of quiet, I guess is the best way to say it. And from that place, my centering almost always includes honoring my goddess, my patron, but honoring the altar, just the laying the hands on of the altar and the calming down the breath and the being in that place, returning to the place which is so special. In ritual, because it's what I was trained early on, I use the meditation for centering of the column. The column meditation, you pull energy up from the ground and feel it come up and move through you and continue up and out. And then you pull energy down through you and back down and into the ground, and then you feel yourself as the conduit where that energy is always going both ways, and you're this bright, shining column. I do that personally, and it is very powerful when a group quiets themselves and uses that as a group centering, where each person becomes this glorious column of light, and it's a building of the temple, which begins from a place of centering for everybody who's there. So there's centering for me. Smudging. Smudging is not a word that I grew up with. It was not, the act of smudging is not something that was part of Trad Wicca as I was taught it. Now, I'm not saying I don't like smudging. I love it. Women's groups I've been part of, groups through my UU church, informal circles, and neo-Wiccan circles that I've joined have used smudging of space and smudging of the individual as part of the preparation for sacred time, and we've had great illustrations of that by the hosts who have shared that so far. I love that because I love everything botanical, the smells and the viewing of the smoke as it moves around people, and I just love the experience. It is not part of what I do in my personal spiritual rites or as part of my circles. The closest thing I guess there is to smudging in traditional Wicca is using the besom to clear the space. Although it's not exactly the same thing, it's probably close in the sense that it moves the energy and settles the energy and prepares the place for what comes next, which is my understanding of what smudging is very much like. While there may be anointing in circle, there is certainly the use of incense for many reasons in circle. Once circle is being set and has begun, and during it, it is not the same thing as this smudging that I see using smudge sticks, smudging the room itself. We do that all as part of circle creation, so it's not something done beforehand. It is something done in the process of creating the circle, so it is different. Mo mentioned offering incense to the quarters, and that I certainly relate to as an offering of air and fire to the quarters, as you would offer water and salt. So smudging is something I certainly love and love to experience, but really it's been outside of my Wiccan experience. It's been more my experience of nature-based and neo-pagan rites with different kinds of groups over the years. Now, like Wade, I don't really like smudge sticks. I have them. I've got plenty of them. I love to get wonderful things. People gift them to me, so I do love them. I cut off bits of it, stems, leaves, whatever part of the bundle it is, put it in an incense burner, a censer of some kind, or in a shell, and I like to burn it that way. I have friends who have vast collections of half-burnt smudge sticks, and they relight them, sometimes without trimming them. And over the years I just realized I like the freshness. I like the act of clipping bits off of sage bundles or other herb bundles and then lighting them in some kind of container, so I enjoy them. But I'm not a smudge stick waving around kind of person. Even smudging people, when I'm in circles that like to do that, I prefer to have it in a censer of some kind and use my hand or use a feather to move it about. And the last thing is blessing. Blessings can mean so many different things, and I thought of it as when we consecrate something by putting on our paten or consecrating with water, consecrating it with incense, with bodily fluids, we can consecrate something, bless something by simply passing it from hand to hand around the circle, by putting it out for the moon or the sun to kiss. There's so many things that blessing could be in the way of consecration. I was thinking about blessing. One of the things I learned was different about the concept of blessing. When I was a young witch and being trained, and my idea of blessing was God giving His blessings on something or someone. And the difference that I discovered, that was an important discovery for me, is blessing in our way was more acknowledging the divinity that was in something, what something's uniqueness and perfectness and beauty is. Not something brought down to it, but something that acknowledges and has what's beautiful from something rise up. So blessing to me is very much acknowledging the divinity of something, of anything, anyone. So the act of blessing to me really is honoring my connection to something, that we are part of the same existence, and that acknowledging that we're not separate, that in some way we're always connected. So it's about that feeling of connection and completion and beauty, which is what blessing feels like to me. Now I do think of blessing as in the sense of what the gods bring us to, what they offer us, what they teach us. So I do think that there is room in a pagan construct to think of blessings as something that comes from the gods. And I wonder how often we stop and think about the very specific things that are gifts from the gods that we experience. And I think the greatest blessings are summarized in parts of the charge of the goddess. In one of the circles which I practiced, very important part of my life for more than a decade, we sang the charge. And to me, the very ending of the charge, which is what I'm going to leave you with, is such a beautiful, beautiful blessing, because blessing holds, to me, promise. And she says to us, "Behold, behold, behold, I have been with you since the beginning of time, and I am that which you will attain at the end of desire." And that is the brightest of blessings. I wish you mirth and reverence. May we part.